Have you ever been through or have you ever had a spiritual awakening?
Yes, I've had either like two or three. Honestly, the third one, I'm not sure if it's necessarily an awakening as it is much as like a deeper aspect of like just coming to know myself and further evolving from where I already was. It's almost like the feeling of like a continued form of like evolution.
Right.
But yeah, I've had them and they've been really difficult.
So when you say difficult, because I've known people to have spiritual awakenings, I've had a spiritual awakening. So what do you mean by difficult when you say difficult? Because difficulty levels can vary between person to person.
Yeah, for me, when I say difficult, I mean it really forced me to like have to look within myself and work through a lot of things that I had been avoiding for like years of my life. But it really got to the point where it was like, if I don't work through these things, like I feel like I'm not going to be able to like actually thrive in my life anymore.
Right. So how long would you say it has been since when did you have your first spiritual awakening?
I had my first spiritual awakening my freshman year of college. And I would say that that actually was like pretty long for an awakening because I think it's a different time frame for each person. But for me, I feel like it lasted kind of like a year. It was like a full like progression.
Okay, so it wasn't like an all at once type of situation where, you know, because my spiritual awakening, again, I feel like once you start to awaken, it's kind of like you said, it's kind of a progression. But I guess the initial awakening is different for everybody. So would you like to talk us through your first spiritual awakening? Like what was the setting? Like what do you feel like the onset of that spiritual awakening actually was?
Yeah. So, like I said, it was like my freshman year of college and like other freshmen, I was stressed and I was worried about like, okay, how am I going to make money? Like, what kind of job do I want to have? I was worried about like what classes and things I want to take, which was pretty typical, I think, for where I was. But at that time in my life as well, I really started to focus more on spirituality. And I had all of these experiences going on where I started to, like, my levels of empathy were like really heightened at that point, and I was really sensitive to energy at that time. Like I didn't understand what was going on, and I started having experiences where I would have dreams of things right before they happened to me in my real life. Like I would see people in my dreams before I met them in like my classes later in the week, and things like that just kept happening, and it was so confusing for me. So first of all, I felt really confused. But on top of that, I also was struggling a lot with anxiety. Like I was having panic attacks every day. Like when I say it was bad, I mean, it was like bad. Like I couldn't function because leading up until that point, like I used to have panic attacks that were so bad that like my parents used to like take me to the hospital because like I literally thought that I was dying.
Mhm.
But that kind of like turned into having them every single day. And like I couldn't even go to class without like freaking out. So it was really tough for me that year. And having that anxiety and the feeling of being lost, I also felt really pressured because I was a scholarship student when I went into Penn State. So I had like a lot of pressure. And then on top of that as well, I kept having things happening to me where it was like every person that I met, I knew something about them, or like I knew something about a personal experience that they had had. And it usually were negative experiences, like they were not happy things. And so I felt really overwhelmed. And that put me in a state of deep questioning where I started to question who I was, like, what is my purpose? For a while, I really thought I was going crazy because I couldn't understand what was going on.
Right. Right. So what was so after your first awakening or even during your first awakening, what were like your feelings? Because you said right now you said you felt like that you felt like you were going crazy. So that was
Yeah.
kinda like your thoughts, but what was like the feeling inside of your body? Like besides
Mhm.
emotion, Can you describe like the feelings that you had within your body?
Yeah, so I just remember it kind of, I'm thinking of two different ways that this kind of like looked within my body. So the first way, I felt a lot of panic, and I remembered I kept shaking like all the time, which obviously was like part of the anxiety. But whenever I would actually drop down and like center in, I always felt very grounded. Like I felt laser focused on whatever my thoughts were at that time. And a lot of my thoughts were about, like, what is my purpose? Like, why am I here? What is the point of all this? There has to be something deeper that's going on with me and with the world. But for some reason, I couldn't understand what it was at that time. So I really fluctuated between that grounded feeling in my body where I felt like very connected to everyone and everything. And then going right back to feeling lost and overwhelmed and like shaking and just fast heartbeat all the time.
Right. So it was like kind of like you couldn't hold on to that feeling of just being at a state of comfort. It kind of kept
Yeah.
fluctuating in between comfortability and having a state of fear and anxiety.
Yes. Yes. Deep, deep fear. So much fear. And like just a lot of feelings of just being lost and like not understanding what my place was in the world.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Enlightenment Moment Podcast. Head over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you normally listen to your podcast to catch the full version of this episode. And while you're here, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this one. Until next time, stay focused, stay aware, and keep your vibrations high. Thank you.